Hi leaders, Pastor Craig here with your weekly update. This weekend's special, right? Because it is Mother's Day weekend. So thank you to all of you moms out there for your service, for your love for your children, and for the many, many years. I pray this is a sweet weekend for you if you're watching it before Mother's Day, a weekend of blessing and of just thankfulness to God for all of our moms. So thank you. And let me say thank you too to those of you leaders who have filled out that survey. That is so super helpful. Thank you to the 30 who have done so, and there's many more I know that need to do so. So please do complete that. That's so helpful for me. I value your counsel, your wisdom, your understanding of things as you work in and among your people. And while I'm saying thank you again for shepherding and continuing to love your people. I pray God's grace upon you even this week as we continue on and wrap up our series, our very important series, How to Read the Bible. And we've talked about the focus of the Bible and the authority of the Bible, and then the interpretation or meditation upon God's Word last week. And this week we turn a page and we dive into really the fruit of the Bible, or the power of God's Word in our lives. And so this weekend, depending on what campus you're at, you're going to get a little bit of a list of the things from Psalm 119 that tell us what happened in our lives and the lives of the believers who are actually devoted to, who study, who meditate upon God's Word. And these are incredible truths for us. And I pray that as you are walking your people through these truths, that you would lead them in a way that leads them ultimately to Christ. There's a verse I thought of as I wanted to share with you guys that really is a back pocket verse for leadership. It comes from Philippians chapter 2, verse 12, and it says this: "Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, so now, not only as in my presence, but much more in my absence," says Paul, "work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you, both to will and to work for His good pleasure." Now, this word salvation is obviously not the first time we come to Christ. It's not the act of being justified by God. That salvation is done exclusively and only by God Himself. So this salvation has more to do with our sanctification, our daily walk with Christ, our daily walk of being made clean, of being purified from the power and the control of sin in our lives. And we're told from the text that we are called as believers to work out our own salvation. And I love that phrase. It calls us to put some effort into it, to put some skin in the game, to work hard, to pick up God's Word and its truths, and to actually put effort forward. But the better part of that verse is at the end, and you notice this, it says, "For it is God who works in you, both to will, both to want to do it, and to work, both to be able to do it for His good pleasure." So my word for you through Philippians chapter 2 is, as you lead people through some of the fruit of God's Word in their lives, that you would not only be directing them and challenging them to pursue this kind of fruit, but also ultimately to be leaning in upon God, who would both will them to do it and allow them to do it in their lives. This act of sanctification involves us not trying harder, but ultimately by relying more upon God's grace and His work in our lives. So again, this is the last week for this series, but that means that next weekend, or actually 2 weekends from now, we're going to be starting a brand new series, and it's going to be in the book of Deuteronomy. The book of Deuteronomy really is a summary of sermons by Moses as he stands on the edge of the promised land, and he gives the final words to the Israelites who will go into the promised land, and he, of course, will not. And we thought this was such an appropriate series because there is actually a milestone event coming up in the life of Bannockburn. It's happening on May the 28th. And if you don't know it already, it is our 50th anniversary. It seems so fun to say that, our 50th anniversary. I've been a part of this church for 3 whole months now, but it's my anniversary too. 50 years, and 50 years of ultimately celebrating God's goodness, God's faithfulness, God's care, His protection, His love upon the community of Bannockburn. And we're so excited to celebrate God on that weekend. In fact, this is a church-wide, all three campus event. Please come if you're out in Butte-Kyle, or if you've got your people out in Butte-Kyle or out in Drip, and you want to encourage your people to be joining us here at South Austin to celebrate again God's goodness. We're going to have a barbecue after the service. We're not saying you don't attend the services out in Drip or Butte-Kyle, but we're saying, hey, you know what? Skip lunch and come and join us. Get some barbecue. Come on out in the foyer or out in the courtyard area. Hang out with some people. Maybe reconnect with some friends, and just join us in celebrating God and His faithfulness to us. All right. That's all I have for you this week. Thanks again so much for dialing in, and thank you so much for leading your people and loving them so deeply. I pray God's great grace upon you this week. Thanks again. God bless.